So awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining in here today. Glad to have you here. I know you are not a very extrovert person from whatever I have known you for the last few months, but I think this should get you started making public appearances a little more, hopefully. Firstly, thank you so much for your service and helping us be free here in this country, right? Folks like you that go out into the army and serve demand a huge respect. So with that, like any other interview session that we have, we want to start with a little introductions, right? And the introductions, the way I would propose is if you can tell us a little bit about yourself in the context of your startup Storietv, right? What led you to start Storietv? What's the background that people don't know, right? About Jonathan, right? Who Jonathan is as a person and what got him motivated to start Storietv. So if you can share that, and then we take it from there. So it's over to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. So what got me into, doing story TV, kind of a little more background. But while I was in the army, you getting deployed overseas, to Iraq and Afghanistan after, combat patrols and stuff, we do have some downtime. And so during that downtime, you watch movies, you watch film, kind of like an escape. Um, and fast forward to 2020, all of us, escaped, to the confines of our own home and used entertainment as a way to escape, right? Whether it's using entertainment as background noise when you're sending off work emails or just watching, good entertainment, good shows, good TV. So movies has always been like a way for, I guess for me to kind of like just, relax or, kind of like, not escape reality, but like, just entertainment. Um, so I got the idea from Story TV when obviously the pandemic, there's not a lot of content or entertainment being produced. Um, it wasn't really accessible because everyone, like, the social mandates and stuff like that. However, if you go on social media, there's just like an abundance of content on there. And
Right.
so with the abundance of content, you could, spend, 3 to 4 hours just on, TikTok, just go swiping up, right? Same thing with YouTube and same thing with all these other things. Um, so that wasn't really there in the as far as over the top platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel it like the what you get is a lot slower, but it's more refined and the quality is better because it takes quite a long time to produce videos, right? And so I wanted to make like an online video place marketplace to where um giving users the abilities or films the abilities to upload their movies directly to the consumer. Skipping the middle person, right? The major studios and stuff. Because I didn't really feel like there was if you get your project rejected, right? There wasn't really a place to where you could go to get it, into over the top streaming, right? If you get rejected for a job, let's say, around here, working at McDonald's, you can always work at like, another fast food joint, Taco Bell or whatever. But as
Right.
an artist, as a maker, as a actor, actress, there's really, it's already hard to break into the industry. And it's even harder if you don't have that safety net where that other option where you can go to release your creative stuff. Because the only way you get better in entertainment is actually by doing, right? And so, I took this idea and I'm kind of running with it now and I'm kind of learning as I go along.
Okay. So just to understand, so where did you realize that content creators had a challenge in terms of breaking in or not being able to break through or get an opportunity to launch whatever, right? It's an indie movie maker, content creator, right? Where did that really happen?
So that happened around 2020, like around that same time where you kind of saw the whole, influencers are one way and then entertainment is on the other side, and there was no one bridging the gap. Everybody was treating both industries differently.
Yeah.
Um, and so I saw that there, as an opportunity, a pain point for a market for the film industry to kind of absorb that influencer model, a content creation cycle,
Okay.
right? Taking that, 2-hour film and breaking it down into like 10-minute clips, into 30-second reels, and um 10 I think what 20-minute clips as well. And all of that is driving people back
Mhm.
to the full movie, right? Getting
Right.
them 'cause you watch enough reels, about, you're gonna be probably more likely inclined to, go view the full movie, right? And so yeah, so it was around that time where, I really recognized, like, okay, this model's, ripe for change. Especially access wise, when soldiers get deployed, they don't really have access to, like, the theaters or stuff like that, right? And so, like most of the time we'll have access to internet if we're at a major base. And so with having, if they have like a smartphone, I'm pretty sure it's different now because when I was in, we didn't have smartphones. And then I think when the first iPhone came out, I was still overseas. And usually when you're overseas in a combat theater, you're always like a year or two behind everyone
Hmm.
else.
Right.
So when I came back, I was listening to songs that, came out like last year, right? And
Yeah.
so I think we got the iPod in the middle of our deployment.
Okay.
Uh, so we were still listening to CDs, right? At the time. And so I think and I've just seen the way how going digital is just so much more efficient, for soldiers in the field, as well as, soldiers, stateside as well, and for everyone in general, you know. I think that's why you see the rise in, digital streaming versus like DVDs and stuff right there. It's just easier, right?
Right, right. No, absolutely. I think there's been a revolution, right? I mean,
Yeah.
carrying around your movie on your handset, right? Whoever thought so, right? So absolutely, I totally get your point. Now you are trying to help outsiders, right, that struggle to break into this industry. You
Yeah.
yourself are an outsider, right? And so what have been the major challenges for you? I mean, so one way, so people usually say this, that if you are an outsider and trying to enter an industry, it's always good because you come with a fresh perspective. You don't come with a baggage or preconceived notions. So for you, it's good. But I'm trying to understand, you are trying to help outsiders break in, but you yourself are an outsider. So what are the challenges that you encounter, right? Because there's a lot of other founders that would be doing similar, right? I entered healthcare as an outsider, right? So I found out the challenges, right? But then it takes your own time, right, to go through those, navigate those. So if you could share some of those.
Yeah, as an outsider, you do bring an outside perspective, right? Especially, working in tech and then trying to bring that tech into the film industry, right? Where they're more traditional, right? Um, and then, you don't have like the inside knowledge, what is SAG-AFTRA? How do the unions work? How do people work on sets, film sets, non-union versus union? So you have, those dynamics that you're kind of like on the outside looking in. And so luckily for me, I have a cousin who's into background acting. Actually, I have two cousins who are into acting,
Okay.
and one of them is in, SAG-AFTRA. And so whenever I have questions, I do have access to that resource of knowledge, because for him, he started, his acting career, just taking a random theater class. And then so he moved all the way to LA, like a lot of aspiring actors or actresses or film industry people, wanting to make it big. But there's a lot of leg work that you have to do when you get down to there. You have to, there's like a couple like side jobs, there's like commercials, there's like you go on backstage is like the place where a lot of actors will look for opportunities in
Right.
film.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like over 160,000 um film industry people on there, right? Always looking for work. And then SAG itself is the union. It's pretty much the gateway to the film industry. And that has over 160,000 people on talent in there as well. And so like you have to constantly like learn and like as you said, go outside your like what and learn more about it, right? Um so it definitely has its challenges because it's like I didn't want to make her, I didn't want to be an actor, I didn't want to be. a writer or anything like that, but I find myself having to, take on those roles to get in the mind of those talent, those creatives, to kind of help with the flow of story TV, right? Because
Got
we
it.
want to change the way people watch TV or watch film in general.
Right.
And the only way you do that is by understanding them and then getting them in their shoes, right? Um, like you can write a book on, combat or war, but unless you've actually been there, you don't know the smells, you don't know the sights, you don't know any of that stuff, right? And so there's a lot of like grassroots stuff that you have to do, um, and creating your startup, right? And it can be anything, right? Whether it's healthcare, whether it's entertainment, whether it's AI, and anything, right? You really have to go the grassroots level, and you really have to understand the customers, you understand people's pain points, and you just build a community. And then once you build a community, you can build a product out of the community.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point you brought up. Getting into the customer shoes, and especially if you're an outsider, is going to take a little long. And not that you cannot do it. I think most founders at times have this fallacy that they're going to build a product and launch it and it's going to work. But then you soon realize, right, that the journey maps and the experiences, the problems that your users have may not really align well, right? And that takes time, right? Getting to know them and really understand them. That's the whole validation process that you go through. So thank you. Yeah, I think that's very useful for other founders as well. Now, generally from now, these are, so you've started almost 2 years now, right? You've been working at it. So what have
Yeah.
been your major milestones or achievements so far, right? If you could share them.
So I think a lot of the major milestones is just understanding the product roadmap, um, and then working towards the MVP, understanding, growing that community, right? Growing, getting up and hosting meetup groups, especially me being introverted and not like, it's really outside my comfort zone to,
Right,
go be
right,
the
right,
face, right?
right,
So it's going out there and just grassroots style, right? Really just building the first users, that sense of community. And like I said, you can use social media and kind of leverage it to build those communities too, right? Because those are going to be your first customers.
right, right,
Um, getting, you want to ideally, from what I've seen, if you can build a good user base on the major platforms right now on social media, plus, then those people can see you physically in person. It builds so much more trust than from your work office and trying to get customers that way, where you're just trying to get them digitally, through paid ads or anything like that. um, and so they're able to trust you a lot more because they can see you in person every single month. They can talk to you one-on-one about things. And so just being present, being someone who's real, right, like a real person, to the startup, helps a lot as well.
right, right. So you started all alone. You mentioned that you had two cousins who gave you that insights, and I guess they keep helping you with it.
Yeah.
But generally, right, I mean, if you look at building a company, you're gonna need to have people around you, right? Team members, that it's a team sport, right? You need to have players around with you, playing their own positions and doing their own stuff, right? So where do you see that happening, and how do you think you will be looking at building a team, right?
Yeah. So when I first started, like probably all founders, we can think we can do it all on our own. But it truly takes, like a Hercules type effort between a group of people to create a startup and to move this only so much in that 1 year. But if you have a team of people learning in that year, like let's say you have there's four of you, right? You're going to be 4 years ahead of the person that's working by themselves during that year, right? Just because everyone is making mistakes and learning, and then they're sharing with the other team members, and so just quadrupling you're learning that learning curve, just by working with the team. And then as far as what I look for in a team, it's usually I look for people who are excited about it, right? Who can see the potential. Um, and then I kind of surround myself with people who maybe can have a strong point. And what I mean by strong point is like, I don't want someone who like can do the same thing that I can do, right? I need someone who can do, X. I can need someone who can do Y. I need someone who could do Z. Because you try to find people who have strong points and who can mask your weaknesses, right? Um, so I may not be well versed in tech, so that's where CTO comes in, right? Someone who is well versed in technology, who understands it from the back end and the front end, right? Also, working with people who've done content creation, understanding the content creation cycle, um, and people who've done, who've created startups previously. And, obviously it failed, but, in this business, failure is good because that's when you learn the most.
Yeah.
Um, right. And yeah, and so that's what I look for is experience, your willingness to, change your ideas or beliefs, because if you go into this, startup, with this idea, like, it's you're all knowing, it's not going to work out for you, because there is so much pivoting going that has to happen between, when your ideal, you have this idea, and then before you get to, like, even the MVP or the second stage, or five stages later, you're always pivoting, you're always trying to find that product market fit, at any stage of your company, right, as you grow. So yeah, and then I surround myself with know people too. And what I mean by know people is they're willing to tell me no, right? And I think that is so important, because if you surround yourself with people that always agree with you all the time,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not getting direction,
Yep.
right? You're you're not getting honest feedback. And I think one of, like, what Alexander the Great actually had the same issue when, as a general, was that he had a lot of yes generals, and then his closest best friend was actually the person who would tell him, no, that's a bad idea, right? And looked how that turned out.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
it's just,
Oh, totally.
yeah,
Totally.
right. And so you need to surround yourself with people who are no, and then who kind of challenge your way of thinking, because, again, it's all about, growing as a startup founder, and not just staying in that little circle, that little that you're in, right? You always want to keep growing.
Yep. No, I like your point about two things, right? Particularly is the energy, right, that you bring. Are you bought into this idea? Are you, I mean, call it vibes, energy, positivity, whatever. And the
Yeah.
second, is have complementary skills, right? That can, I mean, again, it's a team sport, right? So you got to be playing your positions, right? If I'm a quarterback, you're a line, right? So we got to figure out who does what, right? So I think that's a very, very valid point.
Yeah.
Now, generally, right, from a product development perspective, you've been building this, you've been going through iterations, right? And you're trying to get it market ready. And seeking customer feedback, right? So can you explain a little bit of that, right? How does that journey look like when you started off, when where you are today, right? Has it changed drastically? What has really happened along this journey, right?
Yeah. So um when it comes to, like, the product market journey, there's there's always going to be, like, changes, small changes, incremental. Um, and then everyone too, so you kind of have to decipher during those opinions. Uh, because but it's when multiple people have the same opinion, that's usually when you want to, okay, well, let's look into that a little further. Let's, test it and see how that works. Um, and then, obviously the grassroots style, takes a lot longer than, like, digitally, just because of the travel that's required.
Right.
Now, could, host meetup groups in, the Bay Area, and, it'd be way easier, but, the entertainment professionals, the majority of them, they're in LA, that's where the entertainment industry is, right? And so there's a lot of travel to LA, you know, there's a lot of, like, networking events there. There's a lot of you know, I think I would say, conversations to be had with them. Not only that, but the pre-production for, movies and stuff takes a while too. So if you're getting involved in those projects as well, kind of can sidetrack you and stuff as well.
Right, right. No, and I know you make trips every Monday to LA, so just people know that the life from traveling from Bay Area to LA every week is a lot. So yeah, I mean, and it takes a lot of time and energy to getting close to the customer. So absolutely, I think yeah, people don't realize the amount of effort you have to put in, right? Now, generally, so you've been bootstrapping this, right? And now you want to get to probably get more helping hands, more team members, scale this up and whatnot, right, to take this product further. So, what are your objectives or goals in terms of funding and investments? How are you
Yeah,
looking
so
at it?
yeah, always looking for funding, always looking for investments. And I know that time will come. I think right now really focused on traction, getting those numbers to where investors are interested, right? Where the numbers make sense to them. Because if they make sense to me, right, you have to be honest with yourself as a founder and not sugarcoat the results so far, right? Stuff about, where your numbers are and where your numbers are at and where they could be, helps you in attracting those investors, right? Because if you're confident in your numbers, right, you'll go, you're going to be very, very detailed in how you speak about them, right?
Yep. Yep. No, absolutely. It shows up, right? You've been working on it all by yourself, started off, and now you're getting people along with you, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot, right? And then you've got family behind you. So how do you balance all of this, right? What are ways that you get your mind off your startup and go and get some air outside or time outside and it's a great summertime, right? So how do you really relax and unwind?
So I played sports. So I've always been an athlete. So I've always, I always like physical sports, right? So before the army, I played football in high school, and then during college, I played rugby, and then now I play soccer on the weekends, which is really helpful because it's like running a half marathon. It really clears the mind. It really just, I don't know, just that competition, right? I don't know. I just, keep trying to keep up with the 20-year-old kids.
Right.
It gets pretty physical out there. So,
Yeah.
I enjoy it, right? I just love physical sports, right? And so that's usually how I am around the kids too. Teaching them sports, the love for sports, keeping them active, making sure they're outside. That's just how I grew up, is just playing sports, and it's just pretty much all I knew. Maybe I should have had a startup in sports.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Would have been
that's
a lot.
wonderful. So yeah, I think that's a great way to unwind, especially team sports.
Yeah,
You get to like socialize as well, right? And especially soccer, it's fun, right? The only
yeah.
part, yeah, you got to be, because it's a contact sport at this age, you got to be a little careful with injuries. So yeah, maybe I didn't know you were still playing. Maybe sometime I'm gonna drop in one of your pickup games and join you as well. So generally now from a, so that's great.
Yeah, by all means. Like,
Yeah. And then from a tools perspective, right? What are the tools that you use mostly on a day to like indispensable, right? This is my go-to tool, right? I would love it. I use it day in, day out
yeah,
for your startup. What is like one or two of those tools that you mind sharing with others as well?
yeah. So I use Canva a lot. Canva is a really good resource. I pay for the subscription. You can use full thing. So it's got a lot of great stuff, a lot of good shortcuts on there. So I use that, and then I also use Figma a lot. That's another one I use a lot. Figma, Canva. I'm trying to think what else. Um, oh, creator tools as well on like the different social media platforms. That way you understand it, because it's when you're creating something, it's best to use it first, kind of get a sense of it, how it can be better, how it can be different, right?
Yep, yep.
Um, yeah.
So generally, right, now you've been through this journey, you've come 2 years, that's a lot. So anyone that is starting off right now at this stage, right, what are
Mhm.
some lessons that you think you've learned that you think you want to pass on to these starters, right, the fresh ones getting onto their entrepreneur journey?
Yeah, don't be afraid to share your idea. Um, Everyone has already thought about the idea, right? It's how you execute it is what's going to make it different. So don't be afraid to share your idea, and then understand, like, what Silicon Valley is known for. Um, because I didn't know, you know, about like networking and Palo Alto or networking at these different, founder tech events as well. There's like this whole culture within Silicon Valley for founders and stuff where you can go talk to other founders and you can get feedback, and you take that feedback and you know use it constructively, and you apply it to your business, what you're building. And so don't be afraid to ask questions at those events, and to understand like Silicon Valley has a really good network of like founders out here that are first time founders as well. And so yeah, just join the community. Don't try to do this on your own, because it's just, you make it that much harder.
No, wonderful. No, I think that's a very valuable advice, especially with idea sharing. I think a lot of times people are they cling on to it for too long, and then work on something that's probably not even there, doesn't have a market, or there's already someone doing it, or maybe potentially someone could have really helped you, right? So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a very, very valid point. So we are almost on time. I don't know, Brandon, do you have any questions for Jonathan? Anything you want to ask, share, comment?
I was on mute. I do.
Okay.
Um, Jonathan, thank you so much. Very interesting. I wonder, when you started, were you working a job also at the same time? And did you manage to juggle both at the same time?
Uh, no. So I left. I was working on like an independent contractor over at Apple. So I left that. Contract ended there, and so I went into this with like that, that belief, oh, this is going to be my, full-time job and stuff like that. So I was just solely focused on this. But anytime you're starting your business, uh, it's like it's so crazy, because it's like there's like no roadmap for you to go when you start your business. Not like your typical work day where you have assignments from your boss, you have assignments from your manager, you have number of things that will keep you structured, right? Well, when you're starting your tech startup, there's none of that. So it's like, well, where do you start?
Right.
Because there's just so much like like opinions out there. You can go on Reddit, or you can go on Amazon and go buy, a book, and it'll all tell you different things on where you should start here, you should start here. And then, and so a lot of it can be overwhelming. And then, you're not, especially if it's your first time, building a product, of this scope, it really, throws you for a loop and trying to figure out like, okay, should I start? Should you build a company first, or should you build the product first and then the company after? Should you, invest in, a financial plan first or business plan, or should you just focus on the product? And, I found that, build the product first and worry about the other stuff after. Yeah.
For the product first. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think
And
that's a great question and a great advice. We're pretty much close to time here. Yeah, unless Brandon, you had something
uh,
to follow up.
I just wanted to ask one more. I mean, did you ever have the case in which you had a number of good ideas and you were thinking, wow, I wish I could implement all of them? And if so, how did you choose just one project idea?
Yeah. So there you have that a lot. And luckily, cost kind of helps you make those like, okay, which one is more doable, right? For cost wise, right? I
Hmm.
didn't start with like, I feel like if you start a company with more money, you tend to lose more money, because you're kind of learning
Hmm.
as you go. So that's what I felt like. When you have so many ideas, it's good to just to narrow it down, and try them all. Just like, okay, Monday I'm gonna try this idea, Tuesday try this idea, Wednesday try that idea, and see which ones fail and see which ones do good. See what your response is. You can use like YouTube or social media platforms and get the analytics back.
Awesome. So guys, I have to stop it here. It's end of time. Yeah, I appreciate all of you joining, and Jonathan, especially you sharing all of this. I'm gonna be putting it up on social media for folks that didn't join in. But yeah, thanks, and Brandon, that was wonderful questions there. Thank you so much. Bye. Take care.